What's going on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Bringing you guys yet another COTY projections video, a newer series that I love, and that we're finally going to see more and more frequent, like I said, because with the end of Winter Madness and maybe one more event, keep your eyes out, pretty much left majorly, that might cover a couple more years in 2024. A lot of people's years are done, man, and it's time to really talk about some of these top contenders, some of those fringe top 20 guys, some of those guys that we know are going to make the list, but maybe everyone doesn't remember the details of it. And someone who has had a particularly great year, who just finished his year, is Swamp. Obviously battled Calico on Winter Madness, and we're going to do the whole COTY projection breakdown. And for those that haven't seen the other couple episodes, I think it was John, and Sharon, check those out if you haven't, but we're going to go over the full resume, kind of talk about the important power hitters of it, just, remember, because you don't always remember the battles that everybody's got, right? So it's a little refresher. Talk about the categories, like which ones do I think he has a strength in, and the better the case, the harder it is to find a weakness, but maybe even what categories someone might have over him more frequently. And then of course I'm going to give a range of where I see Swamp ending up this year. Obviously he's had a fantastic year, and before we get into this, just want to say that there's also end of the year content. If for anyone that's been a fan of the channel in 2022 and 2023, I do a ton of top fives to end the year, recap the year, and there's a couple new categories I'm bringing. So obviously we're going to have top 5 battlers of the year, unranked, you know what I'm saying, top 5 bodies of the year, top 5 battles of the year, but expect, a few more like that, and let me know which ones you'd want to see first in terms of recapping the year, because I'm pretty much ready to go. And also expect a B-Dot versus Saga flashback review tomorrow, because it is dropping on the URL channel. I see some people happy about it, as we should be. I see some people saying it's a bit too late. It's a whole other debate for another time. Just happy that the battle's hitting YouTube, so expect a detailed, even though many people have probably already seen it, and many people already haven't. There's a whole YouTube community that pretty much waits and will be seeing the battle for the first time, so expect a B-Dot versus Saga review, bar for bar review tomorrow, and then from there, it's pretty much COTY projections, end of the year content, and whatever current events I see coming up. But without further ado, let's get right to talk about Swamp's resume. So up here to the left, we have Swamp's full resume, and I always say there's 2 different paths to success in battle rap, but also applies to COTY as well. You got your volume guys, 10, 12, 15 plus battles, variety of tiers, you know what I'm saying, that warrior mentality, but then you got your guys that lock in 4, 5, 6 top tier battles, and each plate really meaning something and giving the best performance in each, and that's the path that Swamp took this year. Now looking at the battles, the Calico battle obviously recently, on Winter Madness, battle of the night, and Swamp has a ton of clear wins that we're about to talk about, or not a ton, but definitely like a few powerful clear wins we're going to talk about. But this Cal battle is an example of, if you're not going to get a flat out clear win, it's got to be like, as they say, one of them ones, right? It's got to be like a fight, one of the best fights of the year. And that's what I think Swamp and Cal is. I think it's at least a top 10 battle this year, and you can argue that up quite a few spots. I will say, I do not have Swamp winning the battle personally. I have Calico barely edging the first, and I have him clearing the second. So I had Cal 2-1, but I think there's just as good of an argument for Swamp winning the first, and I had him clearly winning the third. And I'm not mad at someone that has Swamp, but the thing is, it's extremely debatable, and it's one of the top debatables of the year, So if it's not going to be a win, it's got to be something like this. And at times, those are the battles that last with people, that get the replay value. So it's not a classic, but it's an elite level battle. And that's why for me, Swamp and Cal might honestly be the most impressive, and in Detroit, you know what I'm saying? So for me, might be the most impressive feat, whether you have him winning or losing, that he accomplished this year. But then that's not his only legacy battle, you know what I mean? And not even his only legacy grudge match, because he battled Verb on Chrome 23 much earlier in the year, headlining out there in Miami, and he clearly won this battle. I do think that the first is debatable, and I would even say that more people give Verb the first than don't, you know what I'm saying? However, Verb clearly lost the last 2 rounds of this battle. I personally had it as a Swamp 30. I know I'm in the minority, edging Swamp that first, but he clearly won the second and the third. More direct material, and I just know how it is with Verb fans. It's a bit of a cult, and listen, Verb is an all-time great. He's a top 10 battle rapper ever. I know the Verb that I speak on now, people think I'm being so critical because it's like a long-standing. No, at one point in time, I actually thought Verb was the GOAT around when I had him beating Loaded Lux. You know what I'm saying? So there's times that I praise Verb when he's doing good, but now I feel like he can really just throw anything on paper, and if he raps it, you know what I'm saying, with the flow that people love, they really don't look at the content that when it's not the content he had in his prime, or really when he's like fully focused and into battle rap. So on top of that, Swamp gave the performance of the night. I thought his third versus Verb was incredible. His second was definitely better than his first. And so you're gonna have a great fight with Calico in one grudge match, and in your even bigger grudge match, you clearly win the battle over Verb in a main event slot. And then he also clearly beat T-Rex on power moves, which granted, I think that battle, especially footage-wise, now that it's on YouTube, you guys can see, I feel like that's the one where the crowd really took over the battle and kind of like hurt the battle as it went on. I still think it was a good Swamp performance, not to the level of his Verb or Calico performance, but a clear win over T-Rex is never a bad thing, even if the battle kind of has its flaws. And on top of that, it's on power moves, which was one of the few like big stage events that we really had this year. We did not have that many 800 to 1,000 person events, and he was on one of the biggest stages, one of the biggest events, one of the best events, for some people the best event of 2024, and gets a clear win over T-Rex. So Calico, Verb, Rex, he's bringing the best version of himself, and you could debate he's 3. I have him 2-1, but you could debate he's 3-0 in those battles, and then 2 more like top level battles versus some of the best women the culture has to offer, right? Miss Hustle, the reigning WOTY on Gnome, and I feel like people forget about this battle in a sense since it happened so early. People, I don't even feel like give Gnome the credit it deserves fully as an event, even outside of Lux and Nitty. But Swamp and Hustle was a good battle. I actually think the battle is debatable, but I'd say most people give the battle to Swamp clear. I still have Swamp winning the battle. I had him edging the first round and winning the third clear. I think that there's room for debate in that first, but if you're going to battle any of the women, right? How about battling on Gnome versus the reigning Woman of the Year? So another, great one. I feel like those 4 battles like do a lot. That's what's doing the heavy lifting. That's where the incredible work is, right? And then you have the 40 bars battle on Anybody Can Die Battle League. So when it says ABCD, I'm not joking around. I'm not trying to. That's really, the name of the league. He has another 3-rounder there as well. But he battled 40 bars, and 40 bars choked all rounds. It was a complete walkthrough, which I don't take credit just because your opponent chokes. But Swamp also was kind of in scrimmage mode a little bit. I'm not going to lie. He did what he had to do to win the battle. I'd say he gave a decent performance, but it's nowhere near, in my opinion, his Hustle and Rex performance, and it's in a complete different universe than his Calico and Verb material. So, getting wins there, it adds to his case, but definitely a weaker part of his case compared to the other 4. Plus, we know that 40's kind of been on donation season, giving people W's this year that she goes against. And then you have just a little bit more work. He actually battled Project Prime also on Anybody Can Die Battle League in a 3-rounder, and he stumbled in the third a little bit, but he clearly won that battle. I mean, this is not someone that should be battling Swamp, you know what I'm saying? A complete difference in just like professional to amateur. And then some 1-rounders. He actually lost the 1-rounder to Sheed on OSBL. Not, it's a 1-rounder. I'm not counting it fully against him, but if you want to do some nitpicking, especially when you get to some of the better years, I did have Sheed winning that battle over him, and then handle business and a couple other Sino Savvy, Boogie. I don't know how to pronounce that, you know what I'm saying? But he's actually pretty good most of these performances, too. It's not that he's not giving effort. I just think Sheed caught him on a day where he wasn't being as serious in the 1-rounder for someone as dangerous as Sheed, who, even though we don't see him as often as we used to, is obviously still a big threat. So, limited resume, but really made the most of some of those top plates. And for me, it's why it's one of the most powerful and strongest resumes, even while not having 10 battles in 2024. But the question is, even with how he performed here, how does that resume now fit into the COTY categories? And as always, we're going to start with the categories of strength first before we go into any categories of weakness or where I think the case could be nitpicked at. And in terms of the categories of strength, not only does he have quite a few, you know what I'm saying? You could almost debate almost all the categories he has some type of argument in, but particularly with impact, consistency, and strength of schedule, it's not that Swamp is just good in those categories. He's amongst some of the absolute best. I'm walking away from 2024 looking at Swamp as one of my most impactful battlers. You know what I'm saying? Because he's in impactful battles, and that's the advantage of battling on Gnome, power moves, headlining Chrome, also being on Winter Madness. Plus, he's getting crazy opponents. Calico, Averb, T-Rex. Like, huge resume boosters, huge legacy boosters, especially with the way he performs. So impact, he's up there with some of the best. Consistency, for a guy whose career, the one thing that you could definitely say about Swamp is he's not always been consistent for most of his career. He's had huge choking issues, stumbling issues. Not just that, when he does have a stumble, he's always the type to be like, fuck, I stumbled. So just letting the room know. He's struggled in this department quite a bit. But this year, like I said, outside of Project Prime, the third round, he had a couple stumbles, not even a flat-out choke. Outside of that, there's really not a lot to talk about here in terms of Swamp choking, stumbling. He completely cleaned that up for the most part here in 2024, and without really taking, like, any horrible, like, super, like I say, he lost one-rounder to Sheed, but a lot of people haven't even seen that battle, and it's a one-rounder, you know what I mean? But in terms of his big battles, there's not a real clear loss here by any means, so that also speaks to his consistency tenfold. Plus, he's, the 40 battle, he takes a little bit of a dip down, but those other 4 battles, he's good to great. So he's not just consistently doing his job, he's doing it at the highest of levels. That's what you want from your impact. That's what you want from consistency. And of course, strength of schedule, Calico, Verb, T-Rex, and then the reigning woman of the year in Miss Hustle. You know what I'm saying? There's people that, I'm not saying that it's unbeatable, but I'm saying just by saying that, you already know the type of year he's having. He's been in big fights. So that strength of schedule is a humongous part of it, especially taking Calico in Detroit, you know what I'm saying? Taking Rex in front of 1,000 people. Not everyone can perform in front of 1,000 people. It's a hard thing to do in or out of battle rap. So when I look at his year, I look at impact, consistency, strength of schedule, which to me are some of the most important and talked about categories. And I think he's one of the biggest players there. And if I had to say anything for category of weakness, because I don't think there's one, like other cases where I thought Sharon impact was really going to hurt him. You know what I'm saying? Or with John, if I'm correct, I think it was strength of schedule, just because it was so limited without having legacy fights like what we're talking about here about Swamp. But if I had to pick a category of weakness, I might say material. I actually really like Swamp's material this year, so I actually don't think he has weak material. But compared to some of the guys who also had some of the best years, there's people that are a little more complex bar for bar than Swamp, even though I think he improved a little bit in his writing, his flow pockets, his punches. I've visibly seen him get better at that this year. But there's still some people that are more writing based. You could debate are a little bit more structured in how they put it together. So I think compared to certain other people, it's kind of, just for instance, an Av, you know what I'm saying, who we know is also one of the top guys. There's other people we could mention, but, you might go his way with something material. I think most people would say that, and that could go for some other top tiers. So if I had to pick something, it would be material, but being that I think this is one of the better years we saw in 2024, there's not really one thing I look at Swamp's year, and I'm like, like in 2022 when he choked 7 times, I said it on the panel, it's a big reason why he fell out of the top 5, even though looking back, still could have been a top 5 guy. I have a little bit of remorse, but it was a real critique. It didn't come out of nowhere. There's not really anything like that to point to for Swamp this year. It's really been, after I thought 2022 was the best year he had, 2024 one-ups that as the best year of Swamp's career up to this point in time. And with all those argument points, the categories, the resume, right? What do we argue that all for? Where they're going to end up on the list. So in terms of my range, where I see Swamp ending up, and you guys could probably guess with really how highly I've spoken on the way his years went down, I think Swamp is nearly objectively a top 5 battler in 2024, and I'm not really sure if he's 5 either, you know what I mean? We're talking about one of the most talked about, one of the best years, one of the most impactful, one of the highest strength of schedules, right? One of the highest in so many categories, so it's only right that I think he's one of the highest ranked battlers of this year. I do believe this is, I can't guarantee by any means, you know what I mean? But I do think there's a very high chance this is going to be the highest that he's placed on the COTY list up until this point. People are still talking about big matchups for him next year. I mean, I feel like I can't go a day. And granted, I wanted to. I've definitely added to it. But we can't go a day or a week without hearing about Swamp and Easy. And even with Easy saying no, kind of people chanting for it in a sense the way people chanted for Easy versus Rock. And not the same situations, you know what I mean? But just battles that people are really hoping to see in 2025. And I also think him and Goods, I'm seeing him be mentioned with even more of these top-level matchups, which people wouldn't mention him in if he wasn't handling business versus the Cals, versus the Verbs, versus the Rex, the Rocks, and proving that he's a big-time battler. This is a guy who really, it looked like crashed out after such a promising start with the Your Honor battle, and he couldn't get it clean, and he built up all the way to the T-Top battle, and when it finally happens, he really had better material but choked it away. this was kind of a guy who was looking like he was never going to reach his potential, and it almost looked like a set thing. And really, the last 3 years has been a complete 180 for him, but particularly this year, if this isn't top tier level battle rap, I simply do not know what is. You know what I mean? So I do heavily believe that we could see Swamp landing as a top 5 guy this year, but we'll just have to see, you know what I'm saying, when time comes around and how the years are compared to each other, because he's done really great, but it's been a heavy year at the top. There's a lot of other top tier battle rappers doing great too. I personally think it would be crazy if he didn't make the top 5. I guess it just depends on who you ask. But that is my full kind of overview here, my projection for what Swamp's 2024 has been. You know, just catching up on the resume. And as you always see, I didn't say it when I had the resume up, but just because I have battles under the line of that resume, it does not mean that they don't matter, but it does mean that they matter quite a bit less. Smaller leagues, particularly one-round battles, doesn't have the same effect, obviously, as those legacy definers up there. But I really want to hear your guys' opinion on Swamp's 2024 down below. You know, of course, where do you project him? What do you think is the best thing he did this year? Because I think the cow battle, even with it being debatable, with me having Swamp losing, I still think all of it put together, how good the battle is, him battling in Detroit, I think all those things, and kind of stepping away when it's that debatable, not looking just at the winner and the loser, unless I'm splitting hairs and I have to decide something. That's just a high level fight. Or do you think the Verb performance or Rex performance was a bit more important? I'd love to hear any of your opinions on his year down below, man. And of course, like I said, expect a B-Dot vs. Saga bar for bar review tomorrow. This isn't one of those where I say expect it and I come back and I say, whoops, I lied. It is definitely, I'm probably going to already have the review done today and it'll be dropping tomorrow. And then please let me know for any of these end of the year. I'm starting up. It's probably going to be a video out before the end of the week. What do you want first? You want top 5 events? You want top 5 battles? Any of that stuff, please let me know in the comments down below, man. But it's been J Smo Reviews again here, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.